would like you to take through this module, which is on sales. Why I chose sales is basically I have, as I said, I have worked in sales for close to 3 decades, and I am proud of being a salesman. So I would like to start with that. Though my career started with some default, so I was pushed into sales, which generally happens with majority of the people, because either they want to be either an engineer or they want to become an doctor or something else worthwhile. And if nothing happens, then you always have sales. So sales is something which is forced to people. Sales is something which you don't want to choose, and sales is something which happens by default. But I would take pride in saying today, I am proud to be a salesman. Again, I am saying whatever I am today is because of only being in sales. The recognition, the acceptance, the way I have changed, the way people around me have started reciprocating, and the way I reciprocate has completely changed because of people interaction. So without people interaction, nothing happens. And the more you interact with people, the more we learn. So sales is something starts with that. So sales is nothing like where you need to know everything from here only. You are actually we all are actual salesmen. We have done sales at some point of the other, right from our school days to our college days, and then where we are working. So the sales happens when we actually promote somebody, when we talk something good about somebody, when we say, okay, this is good, you can try. So you are actually unknowingly promoting somebody. So sales invariably happens without your knowledge. So nothing like you have to learn about sales. So sales is an innate thing which is always there. But when you go through the whole grind, you hone your skills, you hone your aptitude, you hone your determination, you hone everything in sales. And when you hone all these things, you automatically, it's like a diamond. Raw diamond is not that worthy, but a diamond becomes much more worthier when you cut and then you give a shape, and then the shine in the diamond actually, as well as the quality of the diamond, is what matters. And that is what gives the rate for the diamond, whatever it is there in the market. So be a diamond always. We all are raw, we all are uncut, but we all have that aptitude to do that. So with this, I would like to thank once again all the people who are attending here, and I would like to start my presentation. So I have kept it as simple as possible. Not much of a gyan in this, but yes, I would like to share whatever I have learned. I would like to take questions from you in case if you have anything at the end, or you can keep asking questions. But this would be more interesting from everybody's point of view. So coming to the first slide, when I started to embark on this journey, the first question my son asked was, why should I take training from you? We have everything as a module in YouTube. Then there are numerous websites which offers training. There are numerous websites which gives you basically the fundamentals of sales. You learn everything. You go to YouTube, you have lakhs and lakhs of channels by experts who have given their point of view, their ideas on how they have grown and how they have become what they are. But the basic difference is here it is more of an experiential learning. In YouTube, I am not blaming YouTube. So I am not blaming all these websites which are there. It's basically the experiential learning that matters. So the experience that we bring, to the table is something unmatchable. It cannot be matched by others. And this is all hard work that we have also done. So nothing comes without hard work. Hard work is the key to success. So 3 decades of hard work has helped us to understand actually sales. So today also we can say we don't know 100% of sales. We only know a part of what is sales is, because there's so much of learning. There's so much of things which are happening across. Every day you learn, every day you know new things. And this is only possible when we learn from somebody. This somebody could be your coach, your mentor, somebody who has done this. So even I also used to avoid this, saying that, oh, I know everything. So this is something which is very, very common for everybody. I know everything. So I know everything comes from basic thing. Yes, I don't want to learn. When do you say I know everything is when you don't want to learn. So first is we all have to unlearn whatever we have learned and be ready to actually understand and start learning again. So for me, I have unlearned a lot of things which I have learned, and kept on learning, reading books, going through various websites, going through various YouTube channels to understand how people have helped themselves to grow. But mind you, without going into the sales pitch, without going into the market, nothing happens. So that is the basic difference which happens when you get into the market to understand. So answering my son's question, how do you actually understand from YouTube? YouTube is not experiential learning, whereas when you learn it from somebody, it is definitely a matter of experiential learning which happens. So before I start, I have just taken this salesman pledge. Just like you have an Hippocratic oath when doctors take when they start practicing. So I have formed this Hippocratic oath, and I would request everybody to actually go through this and see to it that we all take this oath before we get into sales, or whenever we want to get into sales, into serious things, or even if you are in sales. This is very, very much important, because we forget when we are in sales what we are. So just like an Hippocratic oath which doctors take, so as a salesman we also should take. So the first one is, I solemnly pledge to dedicate my life to my customers. I will practice my profession with integrity, with self-esteem. I pledge to dedicate my life to the service of my customers. I will collaborate with my clients, colleagues, and supervisors, because without collaboration, nothing happens. In this age of competition, collaboration is very, very important. So when you collaborate with your clients, when you collaborate with your colleagues, when you collaborate with your supervisors, we learn a lot. So until unless collaboration doesn't happen, we can't grow. So competition is something which should not come to our mind at all. It should always be collaboration. The fourth one is, I will keep the interest of customers in my mind ahead of my own or those of the organization that I represent. So what happens is, when you start working that I am representing, I have to work for my organization, and whatever my organization says, I have to do it. And lot of organizations do missell, lot of organizations do share a lot of things which we shouldn't be doing, and which might not be of interest to the customers. So we should take care that we should actually be of interest to the customers. Next is, I will maintain and promote the sales profession as an honorable and noble tradition. As I said, when I started my career, it was basically shoved onto my throat. But over a period of time, what I have understood is, no, it's a very, very honorable and noble tradition. You get all the respect, you get all the things which you need. This is the fastest area where you can actually make money. You start from small, then as you grow in the organization, or as you do something on your own, it takes shapes and you actually make more money. So when you make more money, you actually have a more of honorable life. So this is always debatable, but still I will say, let's honor this profession. It's a very noble tradition. Don't ditch it. It is a very, very good thing to happen. And the last one is, I make these promises solemnly, freely, and upon my honor. So this is similar to our sales 7 steps. So I have digged out 7 solemn pledge. So every class I would like my team to take this, my people to take this, so that it becomes a part of our routine. People can stick it in your place, people can stick it at their workstation, at their home. Whomsoever is seriously contemplating sales, sales can be for anything, it is not for an organization. Keeping today's point of view, everybody wants to do something on their own. So entrepreneurs basically have to keep this in mind, the salesman pledge. Now coming to an who is a salesman. So salesman can, as I said, it can be you, it can be me, it can be anybody. But there are people who do not want to go out at the comfort of their places. They want to look into it. They build a team, they make the team run. They will not understand the real market, what is happening, market scenario. So this is a good picture which I saw, that playing in the mud. So until unless we don't dirty ourselves, you will not learn. So the best thing for a sales guy is we will have to go ourselves in the field, learn, dirty your hands, dirty yourself, and that is how we all start learning. Until unless you don't go, you will not learn. I can relate one example which is really related to that. My first day of my company, when I was working as a medical representative, uh, 3 decades back. This was in Bombay, a place called as Sakinaka. I and one of my colleague who joined together were actually going to reach the office. There were heavy rains in Mumbai, and Mumbai rains, we all know how infamous it is. So there were heavy rains over there. And despite that, because it was our first job, because we wanted to reach on time, because we wanted to be as clean as possible, we tried our best places. So I traveled 60 kilometers to reach my office. So when the irony was, when we got down near the office, and basically we all know how much potholes we have in our places. So when we got down from the bus, the first thing was another bus just crossed us, and all the mud splashed on both of us. We were not knowing what to do. We did not want to go back. We wanted to stay over there and see what it is. But at the same time, we were ashamed to go to office, saying that how can you go with so much of dirt in your shirt? What will my manager think? And that was the first day on the joining day, which was somehow both of us went reluctantly to the office, met, or we had a system of regional manager, we have the system of area manager. So the first training was through a regional manager who was 2 notches above us. So he welcomed us, saying that yes, this is the trait that I want in a salesman. We were actually surprised. We thought we will get basically brickbats from him the way we have come to office, but he understood what exactly we have gone through, and he welcomed us. He showed us the way to the washroom. We cleaned whatever best possible way we could have done, and then we entered the office. That was actually a very embarrassing moment for us. Okay, how do we actually go and sit in an office like this? And we were hardly 21, 22 years of age. So first thing which comes to you at that age is, how do I actually face people? But somehow the way he made us feel was a tipping point for us. So we understood what the company wanted from us. We also understood that whatever the state we are in, we should be doing our job. And that really was an eye opener for me. This happened way back, if I can recollect, was in 1991. So it's around 30 years back, but I still remember that day as fresh as possible in my mind. How we got that picture of us getting into complete mud is still there in our mind. But we learned something on that day. Next day, again, we went to the office. We were 10 minutes late. but we ensured that we are not at least dirty like the other day. So it was 10 minutes late. As soon as we entered the organization, the regional manager was standing at the door. He looked at the watch. So we wished him good morning. So the first thing after looking at the watch, he said, "Good afternoon." So we were surprised, why is he saying good afternoon when we are saying good morning? But then we understood he was basically making us aware that we were 10 minutes late. And being 10 minutes late in an organization is definitely something which is not called for. So that was the second lesson which we learned in 2 days. And that actually paved way for my sales career, saying that yes, we have to be on time, we will have to keep our commitments. And in Mumbai, wherever we have worked earlier, people were very much wary about time. If they give us a time at 10 o'clock, we have to be there at 9:55. If I don't reach there by 10 o'clock, somebody else's appointment would have been there by 10:10, and my appointment goes, and the next appointment will happen only after a few days or few months, or it might not even happen. So these are all the traits, small traits, which I am relating with my examples, which we have learned over a period of years. I'm not saying I have done this in a bigger way, but I'm just sharing how do I actually have gone through this. There can be innumerable examples of what we have learned, but these are something which worth mentioning. The first, it's like your first love. So this is the first day of my sales, which I always remember. What all did I learn from this gentleman? Uh, we have even sat with customers right up till 12 o'clock in the night. They have made us wait for orders without even having a doubt that business will not happen. We used to sit outside. At 11:59, he will come out and he will say, "Today I'm not free. Can we meet tomorrow?" So those things have also happened after waiting at somebody's cabin outside. It has happened to us. So 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, the timing doesn't matter. Even in my previous organization, just one organization before, we had met. We wanted to do something very different, and we wanted the minister to approve something. So we met the minister. He was not ready to meet. He met us at 1 o'clock in the morning or night, whatever you want to say, at a four roads in Mangalore. That four roads also, he was coming from some party. He said, "I will give you some 2 minutes if you are ready to meet me at that four roads." That four roads was some 10 kilometers away from our hotel. We still went ahead and met him and discussed there for 2-3 minutes. He said, "Next day I am in Bangalore. Let us meet tomorrow." So we met him again at 8:30 in the morning, the next day, not the next day, the immediate next day, not the immediate next day, but one day later. And we could crack the deal with him. So this is what a trait of a salesman is. I am again not boasting what I have done, but these are something which has always been in our memory, the way we have done our work. There are, as I said, there are a lot of memories which are there, but just sharing a few so that we are in sync what exactly would be the journey for all of us. Okay. Next is basically essentials of a salesman. Uh, what does a salesman require? One is basically empathy. And second is basically an inside zeal to do something. So that is why I put these two photographs. One is empathy and the other is everything you need is already inside. So until unless this doesn't happen from inside, nothing, nobody in this earth can force you to do something until unless you need to do it. So the self-drive or the self-ego, whatever we can call, not the ego in the wrong term, but the self-ego is something which will actually keep you drive. So the drive has to come from within. Until unless that drive is not generated, the push that comes to you early in the morning, yes, I have to do my business, I have to take care of my business, I have to feed 10 people who are working with me, I have to give them salaries, I have to do this. Those things doesn't happen. You cannot get up in the morning and start working. So that's why this Nike advertisement, I liked it. Everything you need is already inside. So until unless we don't have this, it is very difficult. So coming to empathy, there are difference between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy is something which we have always learned in our life. Empathy is something which I actually learned after a period of few years only, because I was not able to differentiate that the basic difference between what is empathy and sympathy. And if I ask somebody what exactly is the difference between empathy and sympathy, they would say more or less it is the same, uh, because we don't know actually the difference. So sympathy is when you see somebody in pain, you say, "Oh, I am sorry. Okay, I can see that you have been hurt. I'm sorry for that." So you express it and you leave without even actually saying that yes, I am with you. The exact opposite is empathy. Empathy is you can talk to people. I feel your pain. So the moment you feel that pain, okay, you actually enter into an empathy mode, and you understand ki, yes, I was also hurt some time back. I can understand his pain. I can understand what he has gone through, because this has happened to me also. So until unless I don't know that, I will not be able to understand the other person's point of view. So sympathy is something which we always do. If we see a beggar, we sympathize, we give him a 2 rupee note or a 5 rupee note, and then okay, we move on. We don't want to even stay near them. But empathy is something you sit with them, you understand their predicament, you understand what is happening with them, and that is the basic essential of a salesman. So you have to empathize with your customer. Without empathizing with your customers, nothing is going to happen. Customers mood, customers mind is completely different than what you are. He is not ready to listen to you. He might be having 10 different things. His boss must have fired him. His boss must have given him some extra work. There are a lot of things which have happened. Even company organizations managing directors, they would have 100 things in their mind. How do I get my salary for people? How do I pay? How do I maintain things? So a lot of things will be going on to their head. And that is the time when you go and ask for a sale, you might feel that he is not even interested in listening to you. So that is basically the difference between empathy and sympathy. So when you empathize him with him saying that, yes, sir, I understand the business that you're doing. It is very difficult for us to do this. I can wait. Okay, you please finish your work. We can discuss it. And when you start share, the opposite person understands, yes, this guy means business. He is understanding. He is having a particular empathy. So it's like putting yourself into somebody else's shoes. This is what we have been hearing from a lot. So it can be related to empathy. When you want to understand the other person's point of view, your customer's point of view, the business that you are doing, if you want to understand why it is not doing the way it has to be, what is the next step which I have to take. So you have to empathize with the customer. You need to sit with them, understand. The sitting process could be not 1 hour 2 hour, it could be longer duration also. So once we start empathizing with them, we actually understand what problems are they have, what pain points they have, and please address those pain points. If we address those pain points, lot of solutions will happen. And it could be just small point. You cannot give him an 100 crore business overnight, but it could be a small point which could be very very helpful, which could have skipped his mind. And that aha moment which happens is something which will help you to crack the deal. So a lot of people who keep doing business, they keep asking, my business is not doing good, what do I do? Customers are not accepting me. So we also would have seen the credit card calls, the banking calls, all those things which keeps accompanying to us. So we don't empathize with them. We only try to sympathize with them, saying that, okay, I don't want, or we keep the fan down, bang it down, or whatever it is. But maybe once you understand their empathy, what from where they are coming from, so that will help us to understand what pain endurance they must have undergone, which will help them to actually sell what they want to sell. Taking this example further, we all would have heard about anti-aircraft ballistic weapons and heat attracted missiles. So these are the two photographs which I could get hand on. So why I am using this anti-aircraft ballistic weapon and a heat attracted missile? So this is basically because to say both are used to hit a plane. Okay. But anti-aircraft ballistic weapons are something which are not used much now. Heat attracted missiles are something more now. So the basic difference is both will do the job, but the precision with which the heat attracted missiles will do is something your anti-aircraft ballistic weapons may not do. So when you go for a sale, when you go for talk to people, just keep this in mind, whether I have an anti-aircraft ballistic weapon in my hand or I have an heat attracted missile on hand. So taking this further, what is an anti-aircraft ballistic weapon and what is an heat attracted missile? So anti-aircraft, which is an old outdated one, would aim, as I said, would also aim at an airplane, correcting as much as it could for windage and driftage and then fire. So if somebody is firing from down, okay, he would aim at the airplane, he would correct as much as he possible, he would check the windage, he would check the driftage, what speed the flight is flying, what exactly the altitude is, everything he will try to assess sitting down at the road. Okay, the assessment can be right, the assessment can be wrong. Whereas it exactly opposite is the heat attracted missiles. It is basically a new type of missile. If they are anywhere near the target, it becomes attracted to the heat of the target's engine, and regardless of its evasive action, home in and hit the mark. So the first one is anti-aircraft ballistic weapon. If you use it, if you miss it, you would have missed the flight by actually 1 or 2 kilometers, because the speed is so much, and one missed shot would have actually missed that by 2 or 3 or 4 kilometers, whatever it is. Whereas when it comes to new missiles, it will actually go and hit because it is attracted to the heat of that particular engine. So what I'm trying to say is, we always are in the first one, that is the anti-aircraft ballistic weapon. We go by our presumption, we go by our own think, this will happen, this will not happen, and we must have done the homework, we would have done a lot of things for us to do, but we go and talk what we want, and it could be one small mistake in the sale, we lose the customer forever. So relating it to empathy, poor empathy and good empathy. So when it comes to your anti-aircraft ballistic weapons, it aims at the target as best as he can, as I said, proceeds along his sales track. But if his target customers fail to perform as predicted, the sale is missed. The reason which he will say is, oh, the customer was not interested. The customer did not want to see me, or whatever reason he has in his mind, because he creates a story around his own failure. And he says, this is what I did. I did my best. I went, did not sleep the whole night. I prepared, I made presentation. I did this. I went and spoke to him, but ultimately the client was not important. So what you have is a poor empathy of the customer. Whereas a good empathy is basically your heat attracted missile, which actually senses the reaction of the customers and it is able to adjust to these reactions. So if the customer is in foul mood, you change your mood, you change your talk, you change your sales pitch. If he's in a good mood, to bring him to what you want to have, because if somebody is in good mood also, it is difficult for you to sell. So it takes time to bring him to the normal mood. So you have to gauge the mood of the customer when you're talking. So for this, you don't have a prepared sales track, because it keeps changing. It's like your qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative is something which is there as a form, you have to fill. Qualitative is analyze. So analysis gives you much more in-depth knowledge of what it is. So it doesn't function. It functions in terms of real interaction between the customer and the salesman. Sensing what the customer is feeling, it is able to change pace, make whatever creative modification might be necessary to home in on the target and close the sale. So I am talking about closing the sale because these also matter, because until unless you don't close a sale, whatever you have done is waste. we have followed with clients. I had a client whom I actually followed for 10 years. I'm not exaggerating. Actually followed for 10 basic years for him to come to our organization. Every time I used to go to him, he will have some other reasons not to buy my things, but he was always polite. He always used to say, "Oh, not now, let's see it later." But I kept on persisting. The persistence was there always. And as I said, it took 10 years. Nobody will actually wait for a customer for 10 years to give your first business. And the first business which he gave to my second organization was a huge business after 10 years. And that was the biggest achievement again in my life, when I could break into a customer. This customer was non-committal. He would offer you tea, coffee, whatever it is. You can chat with him for an hour. Nothing happens. Ultimately, when you come out, you say, "Oh, you have wasted that call." But in front of him, though, you cannot tell that. But all this keeps happening. And then we actually miss a lot of things. So that's why I touched upon empathy, poor empathy, and good empathy. So until unless I don't have empathy, it is very difficult for me to go and talk to people, go and understand things, and do the way it has to be. Speaking about a movie called as Salesman of the Year, which is actually around more than 1 decade old. Uh, and I like this movie especially because it gives you so much detailed analysis of what exactly a sales is. How do you start a sale? How do you start your pitching before the sale? How do you reach the customer? How do you talk to the customer? How do you negotiate with the customer? And how do you close the sale? And mind you, after closing also, what happens is, what happens is what happens is basically, we don't succeed. So this person has so much of problems. He endures so much of things. The company which he works is unethical. They make him do unethical things he doesn't want to do, but he still continues doing it. But he has that, okay, what I am doing is wrong, what I am doing is wrong. They abuse him, they use him like anything. The way people used to treat him in the organization, the way the customers used to treat him, but he took everything positively till he reaches a stage where he starts something on his own. And he uses the company's property of from where he is working, and then he keeps account of what all I have used from this company, so that when I leave, I can give that money back to that company. So it's more of learning from this movie. I believe majority of us would have watched it. People who would not have watched it, it's a paisa vasool. Right from start till the end, the movie is really worth watching. Oh, sorry.
भूख प्यास भूल जाती है, बाल बच्चे रुल जाते हैं, तब जाके सही कंपनी बनती है.
So anybody who is entering into sales, anybody who is doing sales, anybody who has a lot of sales experience, anybody who is a veteran in sales, I would say this movie is a must watch for everybody, because it gives you so much of learning. It is really good, worth watching. What exactly is a sale? How does it go? So there are a lot of movies, both Bollywood and Hollywood, which has been made on the theme of sales, which talks about how to open a sale, how to talk to a client, what is cold call, what exactly is the negotiation, what is a closing process, and what is a after sales service. So after sales service is also very, very important. So this company, when the movie is about after sales service, also the movie is all about learning. What we used to learn about 3 decades back was our own supervisors used to guide us in the market. They used to take us to the market. They will analyze each and every call of ours. As soon as we come out of the call, they will say this can be improved, this was excellent. So these two things is discussed yet after each and every call. So I began my career as a medical representative in a pharmaceutical company. So that was something which was actually the building block or the foundation for all of us who actually worked with me, because that actually taught me what is patience, how to go about selling, and what is learning. So this type of interaction that we used to have with our managers after each and every call. So each and every call was assessed. If the call was good, they used to applaud us. If the call was not good, they will guide us, "Okay, this is what it is." And if the call was bad, they were upfront in telling that the call was bad. Maybe you need to take a relook into the whole pitch. So this is something which was done earlier. Today, unfortunately, lot of managers, lot of people in the field don't have time for all these things. They can go with their colleague, they do go with their colleague, they discuss a lot of things, but when they go and sit in front of the customers, or when they sit outside waiting for the customers, no such discussion happen. Earlier, as I said, before entering a cabin, if we were given a 10 minutes waiting period, out of 10 minutes, all 10 minutes would only discuss about sale, how to go about cracking that sale, what kind of person he is, and how do we go and approach him, and how it can be beneficial for the organization. So it was hammered onto us, each and every call, please do a practice, please do practice, please do practice, then go and talk. Unless and until you don't practice, you don't go and talk. We will also analyze what happened during our last conversation with that same customer. So if so recollecting was also a common thing. So okay, I came and met him a month back, this is what discussion, and this didn't happen, did not happen, this happened. So there were a lot of things like that which used to happen. Unfortunately, over a period of years, this practice has stopped. Today, when you see colleagues sitting at the waiting room, everybody would be busy only in their mobiles. The boss will be in his mobile, the colleague will be in his mobile. They both will not be even talking to each other. They will not be even seeing eye to eye to each other. And when the call comes, they will just switch off the call, go inside. There is no hand-eye coordination. There is no coordination before the call. There is no coordination during the call. And when you come out again, there would be basically a phone call which would have come. So either you or your boss gets busy in that, and then we don't even analyze the call, what exactly was right, what exactly was wrong. So the analysis which used to happen, okay, I still continue to do this, but I have seen in all the industry this has stopped, primarily because we are all concerned about our own things. We don't want to do analysis, because if we do analysis, there could be a flaw in me also, which I don't want to see. So that is why the analysis has stopped completely. So mind you, this is something which we always have to understand before going into a call, understand them, discuss, during a call, analyze what is happening, what wrong is happening, what right you are doing, what gauge the mood of the customer, gauge his body language, what exactly it is, because body language also gives you a lot of things. He might appear very cheerful, but if he just folds his hand like this, it is as good as if he folds his hand like this, it is as good as he has closed his discussion with you. So earlier we were thought about this also, ki, yes, this is what it is. If somebody closes his hand, that means he's not interested in that discussion anymore, or whatever it is. If somebody comes, kneels forward, it could be that he's showing interest. But today what has happened is, the 2 minutes or 3 minutes which you get to talk to a client, the client is also in a phone. You are also disturbing yourself by seeing some other messages. If the client goes on to a call, you also suddenly switch to your social media, see what messages are there. So there is no hand-eye coordination. There is nothing which is happening. So I am not blaming today's system, but I am just saying the lack of things which we used to have it is not there. So that is why we say that we have grown, because we have analyzed this. So today, if you ask anybody whether what kind of training he is getting, he is not getting any training. Before, we used to have a month training. As soon as we join an organization, there was a dedicated learning team, there was a dedicated training team who used to teach us for 1 month before going to the field. Today there is nothing. As soon as you join, next day you are in the field, or you are asked to fend for yourself. And the basic problem is, if you ask something to your colleague, or if you ask something to your supervisor, the best answer that you get is, I am not responsible for this, it is your lookout. So you don't know what is to be done. The boss doesn't teach you what is to be done, and then you go to that same thing. Oh, why did I join, or what am I doing? So you do all the tricks which you want to do. Ultimately, after 6 months or 1 year, your boss realizes that you are the wrong person. You realize that I am working for a wrong organization. All those things. So I'm just keeping on harping about organization because I've worked all these years. So this is very true in entrepreneurs also. Unless and until I don't have that patience to talk to them. So when I talk to clients, I go to their LinkedIn profile, I analyze what kind of person he is, what kind of person he can be. I try to find out common source contact, who could be a common source contact between us, who can introduce me to him before I can talk to him, or who can introduce me to him after I talk to him. So I keep on constantly trying to figure out how can I reach this client. So whether he's my first connection, second connection, third connection, if he's my second connection, if he's my first connection, how do I go about it? First connection generally you can't do, but second and third generation, yes. A second connection, you can definitely try to find out who all are common friends. Even if he's a first connection, I go and see what is his education, what has he done, how long he is working, go back to see which all companies he has worked, to understand what he is doing, and try to find out if I can find a common customer. So a recent example which I can quote was, I was speaking to a jewelry client, and this guy was not picking up. This guy picked up my call first, and then he said, okay, call me tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Next day, 11 o'clock, I called him. He didn't pick up the call. I sent, there was no response. Second day, again, 11 o'clock, same 11 o'clock, I called him. He didn't pick up the call. Third day, again, 11 o'clock, I called him. He did not pick up the call. So the problem was, on the fourth day, the problem started coming to me, saying that, yes, he doesn't want to talk to me. So the first negativity which came to me was something which avoided me to reach him for another 5 days. So I was thinking maybe he doesn't want me to talk to him, or he doesn't want me to talk about my product, or he doesn't like me. So there are 10 different things which happened in my mind, which prohibited him to talk for 7 days. After 7th day, again, I reframed. I said, no, let me go and talk to him. Again, I called him at the same 11 o'clock. He said, all these days I was busy. I am sorry. I could not pick up the call. I know the reasons what it could be, but then he was very, very apologetic. And then when we started talking to each other, we could understand, we could go back to as old as a 40-year association between him and me, where we could even go to that exact location where he was born, where I was born, the exact school which he did, the college which he did, the service which he has done. So we could zero in so much in that 45 minutes of conversation. This guy was not giving me time, but 50 minutes of conversation, we could zero in 40 years of relationship, where we could find some 100 people who were actually common to each other. So again, probing, again, going and talking to people, understanding them is something which is very, very important for a sale. So this is something which I just spoke about, this movie. Another movie, which is Pursuit of Happiness, is also one of the best movies. So this guy goes for an interview and see what happens during the interview. People who would have seen this are requested again to see this. For me, what I could understand from this was, this gentleman seems to be very honest. He knows to say no when he could have actually said yes for all of the things. So he said, I don't know. And he said, if I don't know, I acknowledge that I don't know, but I go all out of my way to know that and learn. So this is something which is very, very essential for a customer, for a sales guy, because until unless we don't know, we will not learn. But the first thing is the acknowledgement that I don't know. When you acknowledge that I don't know, be upfront, be honest, we don't lose much of the things. So integrity is important, because if I say yes today and if I get stuck tomorrow, then that is a big price that I have to pay. So all through my career, I have always been upfront, honest, and used to say yes or no, whatever it is. And if I don't know, I will always say I don't know. I will learn and come back. So this is something which was an inaugural clipping of the movie Pursuit of Happiness. So this the interview without being properly dressed, and he was very upfront. He gets the job. Uh, it's a very good movie that you should watch. But while leaving, he gets the job. While leaving, he says, "I will think and get back." So that shows that he is very, very positive about what he is doing. Okay, so which definitely is a very big positive sign for any salesman. Okay, okay. I will just touch about a word called as rejection. What is a rejection? Rejection is the fear of holding you back. And I will tell you, 99.99 percentage of sales people fear that they will get rejected. And that is why the sales doesn't happen. So when I start with the fear, okay, what will happen? Okay, I have an iota of doubt in my mind. And if I raise that doubt in my mind, I might not be able to do what I am doing. So that fear holds you back in lot of aspects. When you go and talk to a guy, oh, how will he take me? What will he think about me? Will he like my face? Will he like my tone of talking? Will he do this? Will he do that? So you have so much of ifs and buts in your life that rejection is part and parcel of anybody. So we should all learn to understand what is rejection. Without rejection, nothing happens. Even if you go to YouTube, you can Google Harsha Bhogle. In one of his speech, he says the Australian army recruit people in their army when they know that this guy has failed somewhere. So if the guy has failed, that means he has learned. If he has learned, he will apply those teachings over here. Because when we don't lose or when we fail, if we succeed, keep on succeeding, we have tasted only success. So we don't know how to handle rejection. So one primary essential of sales person will be to handle rejection. And this I will touch in more detail when we do the course on rejection, uh, because rejection is something which even I have carried with me for more than 4 decades. The school, I was fearing that I will be rejected. This college which I entered, I was fearing I was rejected. Then the work which I started, I feared that I will be rejected. Rejection is always keeping on your mind, which actually spoils a lot of things. What will happen? If rejection happens, what will happen? You are not going to commit yourself saying that, oh, I was rejected, that means my end of that world is over here. No, the world doesn't end. The world starts from there, because rejection is something which will help you to understand where you failed, how you failed, what made you fail, and analyze those things and move further. So we will touch these topics when we do this in detail. So we have I have seen a lot of videos on rejection. So this is a person called as Jia Jiang, not Jia Jiang, Jia Jiang. Okay, this guy is a big entrepreneur in China. So why I'm interested in showing this is, this guy was rejected at a very young age. When he went to start his own business, he was not funded, so there was rejection. So there was things like this which was keeping on happening. So he decided that I'll have to do. So I have some 3 small videos of this gentleman and one YouTube link which he has spoken. So he's a famous speaker now on TED and other places he has spoken. So I will just take you through this. So what he did was, he took a self journey. What he did was, I will go on a journey for 100 days where I will do craziest of the things in the world and see how many times I get rejected, how many times I get approved of what I am doing. So he embarked on that journey. He kept on writing. He recorded all those things. He kept on writing those rejections, acceptance. His blog became very famous. Within few days, he was in national television. Within few days, people started writing about him. His blogs became super duper hit. People started taking a lot of lessons. Now he is actually a billionaire in China. He has written books on rejection. He has his own website on rejection. And this gentleman had done crazy thing. You actually fear doing this. It's not dare to dream or something like that, where you risk your life. No, he didn't do that. He actually wanted to come out of that. How do I fear? How do I face rejection? How many times somebody can reject me? The more people reject me, so more I learn. So his barometer was, if people don't reject him, he is actually a failure. So he wanted to get rejected. So of these 100 days, 100 different activities which he did, he wanted to get rejected, and he was doing all sorts of things which you and I even cannot think. So I'll just take him. I've just taken 3 small clips of his. Rest all are available in YouTube. If anybody wants to see this, all the 100, I have the videos. I can share it also. But a request if you can go to YouTube and see it. So I'll just play the first one.
All right.
Okay. So he started this first day. He went to a unknown place and asked somebody to lend him $100, and the person outrightly refused, saying that I will not give him. But as he analyzed the positives, he said the person did not shout at me. The person was cool. So I did not face that bad. I did not feel that bad, but yes, I tried. So like this 100 days, he kept on doing different things. So as I said, I have 3 of his small clips. This was one. So first 2, 3 I have taken, and a 15-minute TED talk. The second one, I'll take you to the second one. Continuously found success in people rejecting him. Who can think that you go to a restaurant and walk and ask for a free refill? Okay. Either you should be a beggar to ask that, or that guy will actually shoo you away saying that, oh no, go, get lost. But they were all so polite saying that, no, we cannot give. But this shows he was ready to face anything, because he wanted to come out of that. He said, as I said, his TED Talks will say that. So let me move to the third one. Attempt failed according to him, because whatever crazy thing which he asked for, it was accepted and it was done. So all these 100 days, he was actually waiting to have 100 no's. 2 no's, which 2 yes, 2 no's which we saw already. So this third day, he actually met success according to us. But for him, basically, he wanted more rejection. He never thought somebody would make and give him some crazy request like an Olympic ring in a form of a Duffnet. So like this, there are 197 more videos where he has succeeded in some, failed in some, but this guy is terrible. So why I am showing this video for all is, can we all become like him? We have a character called as Shin Chan, which is also a Chinese character. So we get irritated whenever we see him. My son sees a lot of that. We get irritated. The sound itself is so irritating that you feel just keep the sound volume level as low as possible. But the cartoon or the show is a big hit. Kids watch it like mad. So what people think doesn't matter. For us, the fear of rejection is always there in top of our mind. So when you go out like this, as I said, the first slide, go out in the mud, dirty yourself. So unless you don't feel the rejection, you will not learn. It's a very, very crazy thing that he has done. It's very difficult for me also to do it. And I don't think I will ever commit myself to doing such things. But I would say, please watch all the rest of the 97 videos. I am not promoting him, but being in sales, this will really help us to come out of our mindset, which is a fixed one, which we have a lot of blocks of rejection. So in sales, if you get rejection, be happy, because that will actually teach you to be much more better than what you are. So the next slide is his TED talk, how he actually went through this. That is also very interesting. So lot of learning. This guy not only did Hunt have this trait, we should be ready for rejection. No sales will be 100%. Rejection is a part and parcel of all these things, be it as an entrepreneur, be it or whatever it is. Let's face it. Let's take it as a rejection. Don't take it as an ego. Don't take it emotional. Emotional quotient should be kept aside. So some of the steps of closing sale is the sales process, the pre-sales, the approach, the presentation, handling objections, negotiations, close and post-sales. So these things will be done in detail. I can take you through now also, but since we are having paucity of time, the sales process, that is how do we go about it, the pre-sales, which includes a suspect and prospect. So the suspect is not the criminal suspect, but suspect is something where you prepare the funnel. Prospect is you have that funnel, sales funnel with you, you filter that, and whatever comes down is a prospect. Then the approach is how do I approach him, what exercise do I do before meeting him, not the again the physical exercise, but what all I need to jot down, what all need to do before that. Then your presentation, how presentable you are, uh, and when you go you will have thousands of objections in the market. So how do you handle those objections, so which is again a rejection therapy converted to your positivity. And after doing all these things, you still have something called as negotiation, which happens often. You quote 100 rupees, they will ask for some other thing, or you arrive at some midpoint. So negotiation is very, very important. You should always have a win-win solution in this. It should not be a win-lose or a lose-win situation. It should always be a win-win. And then how do we close a sale? Because closing a sale is equally important. And how do I do a post-sale? Post-sale is something which is very, very important, because if I don't give that quality service, nothing will happen. So Jia also emphasized about one thing, which is said referrals. So until unless you don't have referrals, you will not be able to survive in that environment. So post-sales is referral, word of mouth. Post-sales is something when people talk good about you. He will say, okay, this guy is dependable. He is available 24/7. He will be there to see to it that your problems are addressed. So these all will be discussed during our course, which I want to start from the coming week. The registration process is as simple. All those who are participated in this will get a notification. Otherwise, all those who are interested are requested to send an email to vvi@brainsunlimited.com. So, and I can also be reached at my phone number, or wherein you can send me a WhatsApp message too.